Welcome to Finance Empire, real-life stories that don't just improve your English, but also prepare you for real situations where things don't go as planned. Let me ask you something. What would you do if the most important day of your life suddenly turned into a disaster, and you had no control over it? Imagine this. You've been preparing for months. You've practiced every answer, fixed every mistake, chosen the perfect outfit, and planned your journey down to the last minute. You're early, confident, and ready. And then, everything stops. No signal, no movement, no escape. Today's story is about Robert, a man who did everything right, but still faced a situation that could destroy his biggest opportunity. And the real question is not what happened to him. The real question is, what did he do when everything went wrong? It was a bright morning in the city, the kind of morning that feels full of possibility. Tall glass buildings reflected the sunlight, and people moved quickly through the streets, chasing their own goals. But inside a train moving beneath the city, Robert was focused on just one thing: his future. He adjusted his tie again, making sure it was perfectly straight. He had already checked it several times, but today wasn't a normal day. Today was different. In his lap, he held a leather portfolio. Inside it were years of effort, certificates, notes, a carefully written resume, everything he had worked for. This interview wasn't just another chance. It was his chance. The company he was going to visit was known across the industry. People dreamed of working there. And for someone like Robert, coming from a modest background, this opportunity meant everything. He had spent weeks preparing, practicing answers again and again, recording himself speaking, watching his expressions, fixing his tone, learning about the company until he knew every detail. He even memorized their recent financial reports. That's how serious he was. He checked his watch. He was early, 20 minutes early. A small smile appeared on his face. For the first time that morning, he allowed himself to relax. He imagined walking into the building, greeting the receptionist, shaking hands with the interviewer, answering questions with confidence. He imagined hearing the words, "Welcome to the team." For a moment, everything felt perfect. He closed his eyes and took a slow, deep breath. And then, everything changed. Without warning, a loud metallic sound filled the train, a harsh screech that made everyone freeze. The train jerked violently, throwing people forward. Robert grabbed the seat in front of him to steady himself, but his portfolio slipped from his lap and fell to the floor. The lights flickered once, twice, and then darkness. Only faint emergency lights remained, casting a strange glow across the silent passengers. The air conditioning stopped. The soft hum of the train disappeared. And suddenly, there was nothing. Just silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. People began to move, picking up their belongings, looking around in confusion. Someone muttered, "What just happened?" Robert quickly picked up his portfolio, checking it carefully as if it was the most important thing in the world. Because to him, it was. "It's probably nothing," someone said nearby. "Just a small issue." But their voice didn't sound confident. A few seconds later, the intercom crackled. A distorted voice filled the train. "We are experiencing a technical problem. Please remain calm and stay inside." Remain calm. Easy to say. Not easy to do. Robert checked his watch again. 8:42. Prior. His interview was at 9 hours. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "This will be fixed soon, just a few minutes." He tried to stay calm. He opened his portfolio and looked at his notes, but his eyes moved across the page without understanding anything. His mind was somewhere else. What if I'm late? What if they think I'm irresponsible? Around him, people were starting to get restless. Some were talking loudly. Others were sighing with frustration. The calm environment had started to crack. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. 10 minutes. Still nothing. The air inside the train began to feel warmer. He adjusted his collar. It suddenly felt tight. 30 minutes later, the situation felt completely different. Robert took out his phone quickly. He needed to call the office. He needed to explain. But when he looked at the screen, no signal. He frowned, moved the phone around, tried again. Still nothing. He stood up, raising his phone toward the ceiling, hoping to catch even the weakest connection. "Anyone getting signal?" someone asked. "No." "Nothing here." "Dead." The answers came from all directions. Robert felt a cold wave of fear. To the outside world, he didn't exist anymore. No call, no message, no explanation. He imagined the interviewer checking the time. 9 9:10, 9:20, and then slowly deciding, he's not coming. That thought hit him hard. He sat down again, staring at his phone. The opportunity he had worked for was slipping away. The air became heavier, warmer, harder to breathe. People removed their jackets, loosened their ties. Some looked angry, others looked tired. Time moved slowly, painfully slowly. Robert leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. "This can't be happening," he whispered. Across from him, a woman watched him carefully. She looked calm, surprisingly calm compared to everyone else. "You look like you're going somewhere important," she said gently. Robert gave a weak smile. "The most important interview of my life," he replied. She nodded slowly. "I missed something important once too," she said. "A wedding. I thought my life was over that day." Robert looked at her. "But it wasn't," she continued. "Life keeps moving." Her words didn't fix the situation, but they changed something inside him. For the first time, he stopped staring at his watch. He looked around, really looked, at the people, at the situation, at reality. Maybe he couldn't control this, but maybe he could control something else. The woman smiled slightly. "Well," she said, "since you're stuck here, why not practice your interview?" Robert blinked. "Right now?" She nodded. Before he could refuse, she straightened her posture and spoke in a serious tone. "Why should we hire you?" A few people nearby turned to look. Some even smiled. Robert hesitated. Then slowly, he sat straight, took a breath, and answered. At first his voice was unsure, but then something happened. It became stronger, more natural, more real. People around him joined in, asking questions, challenging him, listening. The dark train car turned into something unexpected. A practice room, a testing ground, a place where fear slowly turned into confidence. And without realizing it, Robert wasn't just preparing anymore. He was transforming, and he had no idea that the real test was still waiting for him above ground. In the next part, you'll see what happens when Robert finally gets out and faces a decision that could change everything. So stay with me, because the story is just getting started. Imagine this: you've prepared for months. You've sacrificed your time, your comfort, your energy, all for one opportunity, one interview that could change your life. And then, in a single moment, everything stops. That's exactly what happened to Robert. He sat inside the motionless train, the dim emergency lights flickering softly around him. The heat had started to build, and the once calm passengers were now shifting uncomfortably, adjusting their clothes, sighing, and whispering to each other. But something inside Robert had changed. A few minutes ago he was panicking. Now, he was thinking, the mock interview had done something unexpected. It didn't fix the situation, but it gave him clarity. For the first time since the train stopped, he wasn't just reacting, he was adapting. He looked down at his portfolio again, but this time he didn't open it. Instead, he closed it firmly. What's the point of memorizing answers, he thought, if I can't even think clearly under pressure? He leaned back slightly, letting out a slow breath. Around him, the train still felt like a trapped box of frustration and heat. But now he noticed something else too. People were calming down. Not completely, but slightly. The laughter from the mock interview had left a small impact, a reminder that even in a bad situation, people could still connect. The woman across from him, Marta, gave him a small, approving nod. "See," she said quietly, "you're better than you think." Robert smiled faintly. "Doesn't feel like it," he replied. "That's because you're still measuring yourself by a perfect plan," she said. "Life doesn't follow perfect plans." Those words stayed with him. Life doesn't follow perfect plans. Time passed slowly. 1 hour turned into another. The air grew heavier, and the energy inside the train shifted from panic to exhaustion. People stopped complaining, they simply waited. Robert wiped the sweat from his forehead. His neatly styled hair was now slightly messy, and his perfectly ironed shirt had started to wrinkle. A few hours ago, his appearance mattered a lot. Now, it felt irrelevant. A child nearby began to cry softly, clearly tired and uncomfortable. Without thinking too much, Robert reached into his bag and pulled out a small bottle of water. He handed it to the child's mother with a gentle smile. "It's okay," he said. The woman looked at him with gratitude. "Thank you," she replied. That small moment felt important. Not because it changed the situation, but because it changed him. He wasn't just a candidate anymore. He was a person in a real situation, someone who could respond, not just react. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes for a moment. If I don't make it, he thought, then what? The question felt heavy, but the answer came slowly. Then I try again. For the first time, the fear of failure didn't feel like the end of everything. It felt survivable. Suddenly, a loud mechanical sound echoed through the train, a deep clunk. Everyone looked up. Then came the sound of air releasing and movement near the front. People started to sit up, their tired eyes filled with a small spark of hope. "Something's happening," someone said. Moments later, a voice called out from the front, "Please prepare to exit the train. Follow instructions carefully." Relief spread through the carriage like a wave. Finally, after hours of waiting, something was changing. Robert stood up, stretching his stiff legs. He picked up his portfolio and looked at Marta. "Looks like this is it," he said. She smiled. "Go get that job," she replied. They moved slowly with the line of passengers toward the exit. The tunnel was dark, lit only by flashlights and emergency lamps. The air outside the train felt cooler, fresher. Each step felt strange, unreal. Robert walked carefully along the tracks, his polished shoes now touching rough gravel and dust. This wasn't how he imagined his journey to an interview, not even close. But he kept moving. When he finally reached the staircase and climbed up, the moment he stepped out onto the street, everything changed again. Noise, light, movement. The city was alive just as it always was. Cars honking, people talking, life moving forward. He blinked, adjusting to the brightness. Then he checked his watch. Almost 3 hours late. His heart sank for a second. "This is over," a voice inside him whispered. But then another voice answered. "Not yet." He looked in the direction of the tall office building, the place he had dreamed about. He looked at his clothes, wrinkled, slightly dirty, far from perfect. He looked at his reflection in a nearby window. He didn't look like the version of himself he had imagined that morning. But something in his eyes was different, stronger. Without thinking too much, he made a decision. "I'm still going." No taxi, no delay. He started running, through the crowded streets, past people who didn't know his story, past obstacles that would normally slow him down. His breathing became heavy, his legs started to ache, but he didn't stop. Because now, it wasn't just about the interview, it was about proving something to himself. By the time he reached the building, he was exhausted. Sweat covered his face, his hair was messy, and his shirt clung uncomfortably to his body. But his eyes were focused. He walked inside. The cold air hit him instantly, sending a chill through his body. The lobby was clean, quiet and professional. Everything he had imagined. But now, he stood there looking completely out of place. The receptionist looked up, surprised. Robert took a deep breath. "I'm here for the interview," he said. Even as he said it, it sounded impossible. The time had passed. The opportunity should have been gone. But he was still there, standing, trying. And sometimes, that's the difference, not perfection, not timing, but persistence. And what happens next might surprise you. Because sometimes, when everything goes wrong, that's when you show who you really are. And in the next part, you'll see what happens when Robert finally faces the interviewer. Not as a perfect candidate, but as someone who survived a real test. So don't miss it, because the story is about to reach its most powerful moment.